Hey gamers, this is Liz Davidson from Beyond Solitaire, and today I'm going to be showing you how to play Hydrologic Cycle. This is an upcoming game from Central Michigan University Press. It's designed by one of their own professors, Wendy Robertson, and it is an educational game about the hydrologic cycle, but it's also a fun game of speed and memory. I will note that this video and my podcast are sponsored by Central Michigan University's Center for Learning Through Games and Simulations. That said, I wish I'd had a game like this when I was in high school. I have very strong memories of sitting in a science class, staring at a chart of the hydrologic cycle, trying so hard to memorize all of the different connections, and feeling very, very stressed out about a quiz that I had. And if I'd had this game, I would have played it a bunch of times, and I don't think that the quiz would have been stressful at all. I think I would have aced it, no problem. And that is actually why Wendy Robertson made this game. I've actually interviewed her on my podcast, and she mentioned that she wanted to have a more interesting way to teach her students the hydrologic cycle, and that this game is the solution that she came up with. So let's get into how you play it. First things first, setup. I have great news for you, which is that setting up this game is super easy. The first thing that you do is put the board out in front of you. So this is a prototype of the game. There's going to be a double-sided board that actually has a basic board on the other side. We only have the advanced version for this video, but if you want to kind of start off a little bit more chill and you want to practice on a slightly easier version of the board, there's going to be a beginner board that you can practice with, and then if you want to, you can bump up to the advanced version. So if all of these arrows and spaces are freaking you out a little bit, don't worry, there is a slightly more basic version coming with the game as well. So in addition to setting out the board, you also get 2 decks of cards. There will be a gold deck and a blue deck. Put all the gold cards together and shuffle them, put all the blue deck cards together and shuffle those, and then hand the gold deck to one player and the blue deck to the other. And guess what? You are ready to play. There are a few different modes for this game. I'm going to talk mostly about one-on-one play, but you can also play 2v2. So I'm going to do my demonstrations for 1v1 play, and then we are going to talk about how you can adjust this so that 4 people at a time can play, which is something that I as a teacher especially would want. So the first thing to know about any game is how do you win it? The way that you win this game is you have control of the most spaces at the end of the game. Basically, this game is going to end once there are cards in every single space on the board. Then you're going to count the number of gold cards that are at the top of the stacks of cards that are out here. And you're going to count the number of blue cards that are at the top of the stacks of cards that are going to end up out here. And then whoever has the most control, in other words, their card is on top in a space, is going to win the game. So you're going to fill all these spaces on the board, and at the end of the game, you're going to try to set it up so that your cards are the ones that are on top of the most stacks in these spaces. So let's do a demo of play. I'm going to show you turn-based play for this video, but the advanced version of the game has everybody playing and throwing cards out all at once, and it's about speed and just getting your stuff out there. So we're going to do the slow version. We're going to talk about the fast version because I only have 2 hands, so I can only show you so much. And then we'll talk about 2v2. So in a one-on-one game, each player is going to draw up to their hand of 6 cards. So that means 6 cards for gold. We got a lake, precipitation, oceans, sublimation, condensation, glaciers, and more glaciers. So that's our opening hand for yellow. For blue, we're going to have percolation, recharge, soil, oceans, land surface, infiltration, and precipitation. So that's the opening hand for blue. So I'm going to show you the game on easy mode first, which is that players take turns. That way I can talk you through exactly what the cards do and how to play them. Let's say that gold is going first. When you look at their opening hand, you can see that gold has 2 types of cards, just as blue will. You can have a reservoir card, which is basically a card where water is stored. So a lake, the ocean, a glacier, etc. You're also going to have what are called transport cards, which are these cards that have arrows on them, and there are a bunch of different types of transport depending on where in the hydrologic cycle you are. The good news is there's also going to be a really good player aid with this game, so you're going to be learning and playing at the same time. When you're playing these cards, you always need to play 2 at a time. You're going to always play 1 reservoir card and 1 transport card together. The other rule is that those 2 things have to be connected. So let's say that I want to play oceans and precipitation. And I know that they're connected because there are arrows connecting precipitation to the oceans. So I could put these two cards out on the board, and that would be a legal play. You always have to play one reservoir, one transport, and they have to be connected by arrows on the board. Then I can draw right back up to 6 cards, some more oceans, woohoo, and some glaciers and ice sheets. There's also one more thing you can do in this game at any time, and that is discard cards from your hand. You might notice I'm getting kind of a lot of glaciers and ice sheets. I've also got 5 reservoir cards and only 1 transport card. This isn't a great hand for me right now. So what I could do is I can keep glaciers and sublimation condensation because I know that these are a playable pair. And then I can discard these 4 cards and draw back up to my hand limit of 6. So this is a way that you can sift through your cards. Maybe you're looking for something in particular, or maybe you just don't like the hand that you have right now. There are a lot of strategic reasons why you might choose to discard and replenish. One thing you should know though, is that if you choose to discard your cards, you will not get them back until you've gone through your entire draw deck. Only when this deck is empty can you shuffle your discard pile and make a new draw deck out of it. So when you're discarding, it's good to discard freely for strategic reasons, but you also don't want to do it so much that you threw away something that you really needed and then you have to go back all the way through the deck to get it back. So yellow's done their thing. Let's have a look at blue. Now blue has a hand. We've got precipitation again, infiltration, land surface, ocean, soil, and percolation recharge. So I could actually make a couple of legitimate plays out of this hand, but I want to show you something very important for the game, which is that you can play your cards on top of sections on the board that are already filled. So if I have precipitation and oceans, I can put it right on top of the gold cards, and now blue is in control of these 2 spaces. I would also be well within my rights to play another precipitation card if I had one, and then connect it to a different thing, like rivers, lakes, or the land surface. So again, it's always a legal play if you're playing 2 cards, a reservoir and a transport. They're connected by arrows, and they're good to go in your hand. And there are times when you might want to repeat what your opponent just did because you want to cover their cards with your own. Then of course you'll draw back up to 6, and we'll be ready to go again. So here's the catch. The way I just showed you these turns was very, very nice and sedate because each of the players took a turn. However, in the full version of the game, you are not in fact taking turns nicely. Instead, you are going as fast as you can to lay down as many cards as you can, and you're doing that at your own pace. So at the full speed version of Hydrologic Cycle, both players are sifting through their decks and trying to play pairs of cards as quickly as they can to fill up the board as quickly as they can so that they are the one who is most likely to win by having the most control of the most spaces once all of the spaces are full. That means that even though you are learning scientific terms and trying to figure out how the chart works, you're also racing, laughing, probably embarrassing yourself a little bit, at least if you're me, and having a fantastic time. So that is a basic overview of how Hydrologic Cycle is played. If you are a teacher or you have a large group of people to play with, or there's 4 of you and you want to play in teams, there's also a 2v2 way to play, and I'm just going to give you a quick demo right now. So if you want to play Hydrologic Cycle with 4 people divided into teams of 2, there are 2 ways to do it. The standard way is for each player to have a hand of 4 cards. So voila, we've drawn for 4 players, and don't worry, I'm going to move these cards up so you can see them. Basically the way this is going to work is that players are allowed to look at each other's hands, so it's not a secret what you're holding from your partner. But here's the trick. You still have to play the cards in pairs, 1 reservoir and 1 transport card. However, one of those cards has to come from each hand. So even though precipitation to oceans is a legal play, you actually can't play both of these from the same hand. You would have to play one player's precipitation card with the other's oceans card for that to work, because when you're in teams, one card has to come from each hand. So the game works exactly the same way. You're still able to discard and cycle through your deck, but you have to work as a team because one of you has to provide the transport card and the other of you has to provide the reservoir card every single time. And then there's one other way to play 2v2. This one ensures cooperation among the players because you divide each of the decks, blue and gold, into 2 separate decks. One will have all of the transport cards, and the other is going to have all of the reservoir cards, and then each player takes 1. So that is a basic overview of how you play Hydrologic Cycle. It takes something that seems a little bit scary, that I well remember from my own science classes, and turns it into a fun game that is about memory, speed, and trying to be the one who literally comes out on top. The other thing that's great is that there's actually already a page from Central Michigan University that has lesson plans about the hydrologic cycle, some images so you can see what is supposed to go where, and then other helpful resources to help you either just play this game better, if you want to be hardcore about your memory games and your science, or figure out how to incorporate this into a classroom. So that is Hydrologic Cycle. This game is going to come to Kickstarter on March 26th. And all I can say is that I wish that I had a game like this in my science classroom when I was learning about the hydrologic cycle. So thank you so much for watching, and happy gaming, everyone.